I have a challenge for you. I'm gonna name a major League of Legends region and you have to tell me who the oldest player in the league is as of 2022 Summer Split. Ready? Let's start with an easy one. Korea or LCK? If you said Faker at 26 years old, then good job. Okay, how about the LEC in Europe? Vizicachi at 29 years old. He just joined the league again. Alright, final one, North America LCS. Coming in at 29 years old, it is Aframu. Wonder how many of you got that. So here's another question for you. Why the hell are league players retiring so early? Why are esports athletes only playing for a handful of years on average before they start a B-tier esports org or go back to school? Keep in mind, those players I just mentioned are the exception to the rule. They are the players still hanging on, while others are retiring left and right and getting back problems in their early 20s. Let's talk about it. I had the pleasure of playing competitive league since season 2. And I started pretty young. Around 17 years old was when I first got onto a semi-decent team. But by the time I was 21 or 22, teams had already started speaking to me like I was developing Alzheimer's and I was a few years short of a heart attack. So I feel like I have a unique perspective on this. League of Legends has a problem with age, specifically with the culture around how pro players are treated as they approach their mid-20s. Let me show you an example. If you compare the average age of a league pro player to almost any other esport, actually, screw that. Let's take this analogy to the extreme. Let's compare league pros to NBA pros. The average age of an NBA pro retiring is 34 years old. The average age league pros retire at is 25 years old. I'm sorry, what the Okay. That has to be an outlier, right? What about football? Bam! 35 years old. What about American football? 27 years old. The sport where you're literally turning your brain into pulp has players playing for longer than a game where you have minimal physical strain on the body, as long as you discount solo queue. This confused the hell out of me. Even other esports have higher average retirement ages. One argument I've often heard from coaches, and usually younger people in the league scene, is that after your mid-20s, your reflexes decline, which is simply fake news. Arena shooters like CSGO require much more reflexes than League does, and CSGO players lean much more to the older side, with many pushing into their early 30s. What's even more absurd to me is that for most men, your brain only finishes developing when you're between 22 and 26 years old. So let's go over the reasons for why we have this age problem in League, starting with the most obvious answers and then moving to some that'll probably surprise you. And if you're enjoying this video or starting to feel early onset dementia, then hit the subscribe button and we can suffer together. The first and most obvious reason is that League is still only 12 years old. So when everybody started playing in our teens, we only really had 12 years to grow up and get hit by the pain and suffering of life's endless toil. I think this reason holds the most water because logically, how many 20-plus-year-olds were playing League when it came out? The main demographic of League was teenagers, and therefore the oldest generation of pro players are those same teenagers. But that being said, those teenagers should be like late 20s, early 30s, but they all retired. Why? Why? Now this is the interesting part, the stuff I think people need to talk about more. Number 2, league culture. I want you to think back to school, back to when you were 15 years old. And I want you to remember what you saw out of the kids just 1 year below you. Got that in your head? Now multiply that by 10 and you have what it's like to grow up playing on competitive league teams. When you hit your early to mid 20s and you get your new teammates, most players find it pretty hard to connect with someone who has way less life experience than you do. Think about how weird it would be for you at whatever age you're at to hang out and spend time with people 30% younger than you. It's really two parts. There's the culture, like the jokes and the memes and what you can connect with people over, and then there's a lifestyle. In current League of Legends ecosystem, pro players are expected to spend an ungodly amount of time, both with the game and their teammates. You have very little time for anything else outside of League, and it's common for pro players to feel pressured to play solo queue even on their days off, or not have time for a girlfriend or friends outside of their League bubble. Basically, you live, breathe, eat, sleep, and shit League of Legends. And for most people, I would wager that lifestyle starts to look pretty unfulfilling once you're in your mid-20s. League as an esport needs to mature and smooth these rough edges if they want this game to really allow long careers. And that's better for both the players and the teams. Players get more years of earning and teams get more value out of players, and they don't have to scramble to find a new superstar roster every split. I realized this was a big one for me when I was watching Elo Santo one day, and all I could think to myself was, damn, I just don't find this entertaining anymore. Nothing against him, of course. Age changes people in more ways than you can predict. When I was 18 years old, I asked my parents if I could skip university to try and go pro in League. I already was on a team, we sucked, and so I was addicted to the game. I thought there was nothing else in life I would rather do than play League professionally. That story is eerily similar to so many pro players today, but with one major difference. My parents convinced me to go to uni, and I played League on the side while I did my degree. But for the large majority of League pros, this was not the case. Many of them have no university degree or even dropped out of high school to pursue a career as a League pro. Now you might be thinking, that's that's fine. They drop down, they're probably making hundreds of thousands of buckaroos. They'll be fine. Let me remind you real quick that the average league player retires at 25 years old. The average. Most of these kids ain't going to be making that kind of money long enough for that ever to be a financially sound decision. That's why the McDonald's meme has so much truth to it. Hell, think about how many pros there are. Then I want you to think about how many people are trying to go pro. All I can say is that I would bet money that most of those people trying to go pro either have rich parents or are pretty good at flipping burgers on the side. The point I'm trying to make is that the large majority of league pros do not have easily marketable skills. And once their league career is over, they either have to go back to school or try to scrape by as a content creator. It's not a pretty transition, and only a handful of them ever have potential as a creator or a caster. Normal sports get by this by having students play while being educated for university or college teams. In League, we see it as an all or nothing career choice. You are literally expected to devote every waking second to it. The feeling I get is League pros are being used almost like disposable tissues, where the game uses them for all of their worth and then throws them aside once they inevitably burn out or retire. And these pros have to start back at square one. I personally think that Riot needs to try and protect younger players more and incentivize them or teams to keep them studying, or at least building skills that will help them in the future. Otherwise, to me, it starts to look a little too much like exploitation of young, impressionable kids who were sold the dream of playing League professionally. But I digress. One of the dead horses I can beat some more in League is the problem with practice and solo queue. But everyone has already heard that, so I'll summarize it by saying current League practice in pro teams is absolutely shocking. In terms of individual practice, being forced to play a full game with 9 random teammates is absurd. If Messi had to find 21 random people to play a full game of football, or Steph Curry had to join some random pickup game to practice, we would never see these players at the level they are. Riot, please release a proper custom practice tool. Allow us to make scenarios to actually improve at the game. It's beyond ridiculous at this point that we are trying to be taken seriously as a sport, but I can't practice specific parts of the game when I want to. But the other major problem that affects pro player longevity is the patch cycle. Now, this is basically impossible for anyone to fix, so I'm kind of just complaining, but patches every 2 weeks are part of what makes League of Legends so appealing to a lot of people. You can take a break from the game and come back. Wow, now Fiora can press R and step on you, or Gragas can throw mini Teemos at you to make your screen look drunk. The constant freshness of the patches keeps players coming back. It also makes watching pro play so exciting because we get to see which teams and players crack the code for that patch. Anything could happen, and for all you know, G2 could bring out a comp with this chap, or whatever the hell the name it is. But for pro players, that can be extremely difficult to maintain for more than a few years. And this especially impacts pros who are very good in certain metas. The relentless patch cycles force pro players to constantly adapt. But imagine for a second if football constantly changed the weight and shape of the ball, or the size of the pitch, or the goalpost move for some reason, or you could teleport from one side of the pitch to the other if you touch the referee at the right place. That's actually a sick idea. Get on that, FIFA. My point is that a patch cycle chews you up and it spits you out after a few years, and some pros get tired of having to relearn the champions every few months. But saving the best for last, and this one is a doozy. Take a look at this chart. What you're seeing is the player ages across LCK, LEC, and LCS. Notice anything interesting? If you take the average age of players in these leagues, we get this. The LEC, 22.4. The LCS, 22.6. But the LCK, 20.5. The LCK is an insane 2 years younger on average than LEC and LCS. What I think is happening across the globe in League esports is, simply put, ageism. Coaches, scouts, managers, and players themselves having misinformed or outright incorrect beliefs about age and its effect on how good you are at video games. Case in point with CSGO, a much more reflex and precision-based game compared to League of Legends. This might be because League is only just now starting to see a heavy focus on sports science and train professionals on teams, but the truth is community mindset still drives a lot of what players get picked up and don't. And yeah, I know that sounds just as gross when I say it out loud, but Reddit has unfortunately played a large role in this, and I can tell you that it has influenced more roster decisions than it ever should have. I can't imagine giving Reddit any responsibility, let alone the future of a team's season, but the hardcore League audience does hold some extremely backwards views on player development. Your reflexes, for example, only start to decrease around age 24 for most people, and that's generally speaking if you're not that active. Okay, fair enough, way too many League pros aren't very active, but with proper exercise, the decrease is extremely slow and in some cases doesn't even begin until later in your life. And just to further annoy me, League is not a game which puts emphasis on extreme reflexes. League heavily favors planning ahead and strategy. The flashy mechanical plays are more often than not planned in advance by thinking about the available resources and being ready for whatever the enemy has. Pros don't rely on pure reflexes to pull off most of their plays. The end result of all these different reasons is that we are wasting a good 5 to 10 years of playing time from our top pros. And both Both Riot and the league teams need to take a hard look at this. Or don't. What do I know? I'm just some random guy on the internet. If you are still in uni or school, or are in that younger demographic playing League, try to push back when young people who don't understand the science say shit like, man, isn't this guy ready for retirement? Instead, just look them in the eyes and shout at them to get off your lawn, you stupid kid, and smile, knowing that they're gonna have to enter the job market during a historic recession that was caused by the boomers. If you want to know more about how pro players get the most out of their mouse settings, click here.